Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. It's Tech Talk time, and we're going to be having a look at the last Tech Talk. At the same time, we're going to be doing the special tasks and maybe some strike aircraft stuff, and we'll see where we get to, like when it comes to the actual gameplay. Technically, we have the Phantom stuff to do, but I don't like doing that when I'm recording. High-tech jets is something I do actually have to focus a little bit on, so yeah, can be a little bit rough. But yeah, so what we're going to do is the standard Tech Talk. If you don't know what the Tech Talk is, it's kind of a weekly podcast we do. And it goes through the comments of the last Tech Talk. So if you have anything that you want kind of chatted about, that's how you do it. You stick it in the comments, and then we kind of go from there and have a fun time. Hey, Moxie, nice to see you. So yeah, it's been an interesting week when it comes to War Thunder. We got a decent amount of information about the next updates. We got two dev blogs, and then also the roadmap stuff, plus some additional stuff on top of it. So a lot of different things which came out, and I'm sure next week we're gonna get a ton more. Also, the event they talked about it being a ground vehicle, but that's pretty much it. Like, it's kind of crazy. Is studying important? Yes, people. It is very important, especially since you only get one shot at a lot of things, so it's better to get it done. So, let's see what we have in terms of comments. My voice is just like all over the place. I feel like I have something stuck in my throat. This kind of just started like 10 minutes ago. It's very weird, so hopefully it won't be too bad. First of all, we have Koam Chan. Thank you, as always, for the for doing the timestamps, just like everybody who does them. It's very kind of them. So I'm glad that Koam-chan got them done, and all of the others who end up doing it too. Thank you very much. Then we have Common Sense. Hey Tech, did you notice the Travel Gramophone Ground Decoration Prize actually plays music in the hangar in game? How cool is that? Yeah, it's really awesome. It's something I've been looking forward to for a long time. The interactive decorations. We've had ones which have done lights. We've had ones which move. You know, a lot of the naval ones, and obviously the drone and stuff in ground and the flashing light. And now we have one which actually plays audio. It's awesome, and it's obviously the best part of the event. Kind of sucks that a lot of people didn't know about it. So I mean, I talked about it. I talked about it in the videos about the event, but I'm guessing people just didn't see it or didn't know it was there. I saw a lot of people after, I talked about the event itself and how kind of forgettable it was. I actually kind of showed it, and people were like, "Oh, that was part of it? Wait, how do I get that?" And it's like, well, you either have to G the stuff or it's gone forever. Like, things like that, never actually kind of come back apart from loot crates. So that kind of sucks. So it's really cool that it's there. I just wish it was a bit more advertised, because there was absolutely no advertising about it actually doing that. Instead, it was something that people had to find. And yeah, it's cool, as I said, but it's one of those which I feel like a lot of people are going to regret not having. And also, yeah, when it comes to audio and stuff, like, it can get quite annoying hearing this stuff over and over again, but also at the same time, you can always just turn it off, right? It's just more of like a little novelty thing, which is nice to see. Like, that's the main thing. Simple as. I wish I was coming out of puberty again, to be honest, Moxie. I feel like a deeper voice would be good as well, but yeah, it's just... No, I put on, like... So I worked out a little bit ago, and I just, like, washed and then put on, like, this deodorant, and it's more of like a powdered deodorant instead of, like, a more liquid one. And I think, honestly, it's just, like... It's just got stuck in my lungs. So... I had to yesterday deal with a bunch of black mold in an area of the house, which obviously had been left for a while, so might also be that. Maybe I'm dying, who knows? We'll see. See if the spores got inside. We'll have to See what goes on. And then the next one is TT Flap. It was called Devotion, and it was amazing. Yeah. It was Devotion was the film about the first Black Korean War pilot, I believe, or at least individual pilot. The strike aircraft one. Yeah, it was a really good film. I remember looking and seeing it did really badly on the box office, which kind of sucks. I mean, it wasn't really marketed at all. For me, like obviously I'm very much involved in like military history and stuff like that, and even then I didn't even see a lot of marketing around it. It just kind of sucked. So it was good. I think it's available on like either Netflix Prime or like Apple. So, you know, you can go see it, but yeah, it's just it just kind of sucks that not a ton of people appreciated it. And I mean, I know the story itself is kind of basic and everything, and it's pretty much as simple as that, but it was still fun to watch. Hey Trilinky, nice to see you. Hey Barbecue Spaghetti, nice to see you too. Hopefully you're doing good. Hi Tech, hope you're having a great time. Yeah, this week was good. You know, I'm a bit worried about next week when it comes to being busy and sorting stuff out, but we should be okay. Like, yeah, it's the one with the Corsairs, Moxie, yeah. But I'm overall feeling very confident we can get everything done. And, yeah, it's becoming that busy period of time again where I have to really focus, so apart from that, you know, everything's good. Thanks for answering my question about the removed vehicles. I had no idea that there was a leak years ago with models of fake vehicles. It sounds interesting. I'll try and look it up. Yeah, it's one of the more popular videos on my channel actually. But it isn't just that. It's just like fake vehicles have been added to the game during that time. Like, you know, and also like with War Thunder Mobile, you have stuff like the Stalingrad, right? Like that's one that was around. The commenter on another video made an excellent point on what you call the War Thunder doldrums. It's like the Formula 1 silly season. When you don't have much going on, unhinged discussions start coming out of the woodwork. I motion to adopt the name War Thunder silly season because it sounds funny. I mean, yeah, the War Thunder silly season is the end of January and early February, and then like now, usually. This is when obviously last year you had all of the good old War Thunder player union nonsense, and then like a bunch of other things that were going on during the time. So yeah, it's just, you know, this is usually the time that people get annoyed about weird things. Like recently, with obviously the Benelux leaks and stuff like that. Hey, Window Man, nice to see you. Yeah, mahoovering. It's a great word to say. The simple thing is you know we've now. There's a ton of conversations about where should, you know, the Dutch vehicles go or where should they not go, and there's a very obvious choice here, like when it comes to what should happen, and it's kind of annoying to me that we're having I'm getting to the point in my life where a lot of these like discussions I'm not even interested in like listening about them or like going through them because they all follow like the same lines. And it's like basing stuff off like feelings, like, oh well, I feel like this is not going to be good. And it's like, okay, well I feel the opposite. All right, well it looks like we're going to end this conversation and move to the next one. Right, like that's kind of how my brain works with a lot of this stuff. And it's probably not the most productive, and it also, the biggest issue is it pisses people off when I do it. But I honestly like kind of check out of a lot of conversations when it comes to that stuff, so it's just kind of how it is, unfortunately. But the doldrums part brings out all the different stuff. So, for example, you know, it brings out the map stuff, you know, people complaining about maps. It brings out the lack of new vehicles, copy paste, and like all of the random things. Like yesterday, I was being pestered by people. One of the dumbest things I think I've ever heard. There was some idiot who was trying to push the idea that in Realistic, what you should have markers which are incredibly limited. So it doesn't tell you the name of the person, doesn't tell you the vehicle that they're in, just has a dot above their head. Now, As a person who has played this game for many years, and also understands that there is a massive difference between variants of vehicles and what they look like, if anything, more information is needed, not less, right? Like, if it just says on the screen MiG-21, that could mean a variety of different things depending on what BR range you're at. If it says something like Spitfire, for example, like those two over there, it could mean two completely different vehicles at this rank of 5.7. Are they Griffin Spits? Are they Merlin Spits? Right? Are they clipped wing? Are they straight wing? All of these different things, right? But for some reason, there are some clots out there which are trying to make it harder for people to play the damn game because, I don't know, they're bored or they once again want to push this realistic thing. Well, you know what you can do? You can shove it, you can go to battle interface, and you can turn it off yourself. You idiots. Jesus. Right, sorry. I needed to get that out of my system. Because I was just reading it, like, yesterday, and people kept pointing it towards me, and it was just some of the dumbest stuff I've just ever seen. And it is just straight, once again, people just having brain rot, because there's nothing else going on right now. Just shut up and be quiet and go away. Stop bothering the general population with your thoughts. They're worth less than paper. Right. Last thing, I have an idea for a possible mechanic. Profile titles, but for individual vehicles. Naming individual vehicles is something that real crews did a lot. What if you had a grindable pool of names that you can assign to your vehicles when you unlock them, similar to profile titles? I mean, that's pretty cool. I like that. You could tie them to a bunch of stuff. You could have historical names tied to Page of History, like the Stura meal called Moritz or the Churchill called Eagle. And when you have general theme names, you can grind through the battle pass or even as an event prize. Since they have a bunch of social features planned, including kill cam info, customization, I think this would fit really nicely. I think I might make a suggestion on the forums. What do you think? Yeah, I honestly think that's really cool. Like, it's not taking away from anybody. It's adding something new. It's not innocuous. And also, you know, if people didn't want to see it, they could just turn it off. So, yeah, I kind of like that idea. They could also technically link it to decals, right? Because there's a bunch of vehicle-specific decals which are in the game, but also there are a bunch of decals which are for, like, squadrons which use specific vehicles. So you could even link it to that if you wanted. Or you could bring in a new set of text decals, which when you unlock the name, you can put that on. Or it could just be a camo, but with the name on, right? Just like some other things like barrel names or, you know, names on vehicles. No, I really like that. I think that's really cool. I've been looking into ways of trying to. One of the things is there are players in the game who play specific vehicles a lot, right? So for me, when it comes to like grinding, I use the SB2C5 quite a lot because it's the easiest bomber to use. Same with stuff like the Mauler, right? When we're doing like strike aircraft challenges and things like that. So what if you created a system, right? What if you created a system where you could get something above the Ace crew modification, but it was more decals decorations. So something to kind of push towards, which isn't going to give people an advantage, but gives them something to work towards. Very similar to basically achievements, and also just the camos, right? Like, there's a lot of camos where you can grind them out and get them sorted, and some people do that. They grind out all the different camos from all the different vehicles. And, you know, for naval and ground, it's something that I've been doing, but that's just because you kind of get them while you spade the vehicles. But for aviation, it's still a little bit further off compared to what it was before. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Hey, Leon Fluff, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing good. If you want, you can disable markers in realistic. Yeah, exactly. Like, just, once again, don't limit other people. Just go for, like, you can limit it yourself, thank you. You know? What is this? What is that? Is that on my screen? Oh, it's on the airfield. The reason why people are asking for no markers is that CAS and bombers could be playable, since they would have a little bit of stealth instead of name popping in at 5 kilometers. No, that's not the case. That's very silly, and that's not how this works. The reason why a lot of strike aircraft have no survivability is because they all just charge towards the center of the screen at the start of the battle, right? The reason why bombers do not have any survivability is because they go straight for the bases. If you actually modify your playstyle and go around, therefore, you actually have quite a lot of survivability. We've proved that many times over many different days, over many different years. Which is why the vast majority of the bombers that I played, I've hardly died in. So modification of playstyle is required. Like, yeah, for my British ground tech tree, I mained the shit out of the Sherman Firefly, and there was a ton of field mods that British crews made where fighting in the Firefly, like the fake muzzle brake, yeah, stuff like that could be quite fun, you know? Like that would be the way to go. Like, yeah, no, the way that you improve survivability is you don't go for the center of the map at the start of the game. Simple as. It's always been that case. Wait for the initial battle to happen. Either support the initial battle if you want to, or just wait for 5 minutes max. Because nowadays you don't even have to wait for like a long time, and then after that you will have the battle for yourself. So yeah. Like, I really, if the reason to do that is to increase survivability of strike aircraft and bombers, that is ludicrous. That's just insane. And once again, it's like it's straight up just chopping the hand to spite the face. So we have MJ. Why does RRB doesn't have multiple spawns? Don't know. It never has really. Hey Hans, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing good. Yeah, RRB started and never had multiple spawns and kind of has stayed that way. I don't know really why. Probably because nowadays they see it more as like a quick action game mode. So multiple spawns wouldn't really make a lot of sense. Also, maybe the fact that people would just run in like a crazy person to try and hit as much AI as possible and then follow up with fighters. Like, who knows? Like you can just do stuff like that. Like it's definitely a way that you can sort it out. But I'm not sure. I have no idea why they haven't ever added multiple spawns, apart from trying to make the game mode, you know, an individual vehicle game mode. What I've always wanted in a realistic is you can bring in a lineup, and depending on the map that you're on, because certain maps actually work well for strike aircraft, certain maps work well for bombers, but there are some maps which just don't. So I would want to bring in a fighter on those things, you know. Like that's the way. That's the way to go. Doing okay. Decided to spade the F4C while also doing today's page of history. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, for me, I'm trying to work out what I'm gonna grind out when it comes to the page of history. Probably like the F4E or something like that. We'll have to see. 90% of the games for bombers are if you go around, either your team is dead and there are like 6 enemies salivating for your ass, or their team is dead and the game is over. No, that's not the case. That's the common narrative that you hear all the time, and that's the one that people always say, but it's not true, and never has been. If you understand how timing works, and if you understand when to go in and when not to go in, and you make the correct decisions, then you will be fine, and you'll be able to get a lot of score off and survive. I've streamed for many years, and even recently we respaded the G8. We also did the TU4, was it? Was it the TU4? Or it was something else that we were spading out. Oh, the IL-28, and also the TU2. You can go and look at those streams, you can go and see how I played them, and you can go and see how those vehicles didn't die a lot. Like, it's really not hard to do it. It's just for some reason people don't do it. And instead they just push this narrative, which is just false. So you have to stay under like the vapor layer. You just have to turn 45 degrees for 5 minutes and then turn back in. The vast amount of players who play War Thunder play it like a team deathmatch now. So they just run into the middle and then fight. It's very easy to deal with as a bomber. Like here, right? So you see the Hungarian one here? So we recently spaded this. 28 battles, 9 deaths, 5 air kills, 25 ground kills. Right? So in 28 battles, we died 9 times. Which is really not a lot. TU2 for Hungary. 16 battles, 16 spawns, 4 deaths. Right? And then I think we spaded the Chinese TU4, didn't we? Wasn't that the one? 18 battles, 8 deaths, 2 kills, 1 death. Right? So we're dying less than half the time in all of these vehicles. Shackleton. 12 battles, 2 deaths. Lincoln. That's spelt wrong. Lincoln. 15 battles, 9 deaths. Right? All of these are to spade the vehicles. B29. 9 battles, 5 deaths. So we're basically dying half the time. Right? Now, if it was the case that 90% of games were like that, or you were always hounded by bombers, my stats wouldn't be that, would they? As I said, I've been spading these vehicles. Like, it's just how it goes. Do you still have free repairs for some of those big bombers after spading them? Yeah, most of them. Like, a lot of, I think the TU4 for China, like, when I spaded it, yeah, I still have a free repair for it. Like, it's just how it is. I probably don't for these ones. Oh no, never mind. I have 6 free repairs for the TU2 that we just did, and I don't have any for the IL-28. So yeah. Like, and the G8 was the one that we recently did again. But yeah, it's a playstyle thing, man. That was the reason why back in the day they had crazy high repair costs, because people wouldn't die in them. So the question is, how are people able to not die in them? How do you play around that? Yeah, I don't know why a realistic doesn't have multiple spawns nowadays. Then we have Tobias. Honestly, my thoughts on CAS is that planes should have to take off from the airfield and bombs shouldn't get fuse delay. What? This would make planes take a bit longer to reach the battle and be more vulnerable to CAS, as well as making bombs less accurate since you couldn't just drop it from point blank if you want to survive. I mean, I suppose they could do that, but I don't honestly think that would really change that much. Like, the takeoff thing would obviously make them a little bit slower to engage, but it's not really doesn't really solve the issue. It just means you get hit in the head like a minute later instead of a minute before. The other part of it, like the bomb delay thing, I mean, there is an art when it comes to bombing, right? And if you remove the delay, it isn't just making it so people like can never like hit themselves with the bomb, or sorry, it isn't making it so people will never get hit with the bomb. What it's doing is it means that you'll never be able to escape as a tank as well. So it'll just mean that there'll be no counterplate stuff like that. Like you'll unless somebody cocks up the bomb drop, you'll just die. So I don't know. No, I mean if we wanna be crude about the whole thing and do stuff like this, just make everything first person. There you go. Hey Jake, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing good. I'm doing alright. You know, we got the workout in, which was nice, and had some pancakes for breakfast. Always a fan. Went to IKEA yesterday. Wandered about, had a good time. Got some pillows and stuff like that. It's pretty fun. But yeah, like if we're gonna start doing this whole like let's limit people based on like, you know, this based on like artificial stuff, just make them all first person, man. You deal with CAS over you deal with CAS pretty much overnight if you really wanna limit stuff. But at the same time, you know, with the changes they've made when it comes to the BR stuff, I think it's probably better just to see how that's gonna go and then make decisions based on it later on. Like if additional stuff needs to be done, then additional stuff needs to be done. I would personally prefer if they actually made it, so I would personally prefer if they just made it so a bunch of vehicles were what's the word? They just maneuvered around the SP costs a bit more. You know, they don't have to do anything else. Like they don't have to go crazy with anything. That's all they got to do. Did you find any Swedish tanks that could build in IKEA? We found some tiny children's toys ones, yeah, which is quite fun. Did he get a Blahaj? Yeah, I haven't. The names in those places are hilarious. I enjoy them. They're quite fun. Hey, Papa Stalin, nice to see you. But yeah, once again, we don't need crazy stuff when it comes to CAS. You know, I feel like a lot of these chats are always overcomplicating things. Just literally bring in the BRs, which is what they're doing, and then after that, just raise the SP costs of things which you use too much. The simple solutions are usually the best. There's no reason to go crazy. Hey Tech, I have an idea regarding BR compression. Would limiting the BR range to plus or minus 2 BR brackets instead of plus or minus 3 partially fix the problem of impossible up tiers and dominating down tiers? I mean, to a point. But then the new thought would just be the fact that, you know, the down tiers would still be too rough and the up tiers would still be too thingy. You shift the Overton window, like with ideas like that. The other problem with it is you create black hole BRs, which is, you know, something that we've said. Oh, sorry, not we, but I've said for a while, and got a lot of stick for. And we're seeing it in action even with the 1.0 system. Black hole BRs are areas which become impossible to play because of the fact that people are playing other areas of the game. And because metas are based around those areas. If you want an example of this, you can have a look at 11.7 ground, where there is like 5 vehicles. No, sorry, not 11.7. 11.0? No, 10.7. Sorry, I was thinking of a... But yeah, 10.7 ground, there is some Chinese vehicles, and there's like a few American vehicles, and that's it. Like and if you compare that to like 11.7, 10.3, you know, 10.0, it's a tiny amount of vehicles. Back in the day, what would happen is usually the BR bracket, which was the lowest below top tier. So if you have like 12.7, it would be 11.7, or if you had 11.0, it would be 10.0. But there would be BR brackets where after like a bunch of BR balancing, there'd just be a hole because nobody's playing in that area. Because if you play in that area, you either get monstrously up-tiered, or you get lucky and you get fully down-tiered. But the vast majority of the time, because of quantitative matchmaking, you're going to get up-tiered. And that's not fun. It's not enjoyable. And, yeah, it just means that you have a really rough time. Because since other nations also don't have any vehicles at those BRs, you are on an island. If you want the perfect example of this is 10.0 for air. So 10.0 for air right now, you have the F8U2, and then you have like the SU-25 and the A-10. Right? That's pretty much it. So if you have the Soviets versus the Americans, then one side has FAU-2s in a full down tier, and one side has A-10s. They have FAU-2s and A-10s, and the other side has SU-25s. So the FAU2 can do whatever it wants, because that matchup is horrific for the SU-25, right? So in a full down tier, you could have 4 FAU2s against a bunch of vehicles which have no countermeasures and cannot do anything against them. And that's the problem with setting up stuff like that. That's the problem with having, like, even just a standard matchmaking system. You create these BRs which are untenable for people, and people just stop playing them, and then they just disappear from, you know, the general play. And then you start getting holes, and then that means that once a hole is there, if there is a BR which is either side of that, then it either gets drastically up-tiered or drastically down-tiered, right? Because people want to play the meta stuff and they want to have fun. So they don't play the bit where they get crucified. Now, if you create a system where it's 0.7 instead of 1.0, you don't remove that, but you increase queue times. Because of the fact that there is a smaller bracket of people that the matchmaker is going to look at. Now, what happens when you increase queue times? People get impatient. I know people don't like talking about this because there's always people who go, well, you know, I'll wait 10 minutes for a match. I'll wait 5 minutes for a match. That's okay. Number one, other people won't. They'll just go play something else. If you don't believe me, you should have seen the stuff with Tarkov recently. There are certain servers in Tarkov you have to wait like 10 minutes, 20 minutes to get into a server. And people were really like complaining about it. Like to a point where it was like, you need to fix this kind of thing, right? Because there was a lot of people just quitting the game for it. And now that there's a competitor that's come out for Tarkov, no matter how scummy it is or whatever, now stuff like that's going to have to be fixed, right? If you get to a stage in War Thunder where people, you know, get to a point where it's taking a very long time to matchmake, they just won't queue up. They'll go find something else, or they'll go play the BRs where it's quick action and they can get into it. This is what actually causes, you know, the issues with matchmaking. Like one of the things I was harping back to was an interview with the creative director of World of Tanks, where somebody asked him what was the perfect matchmaker, and he said the perfect matchmaker is 0 seconds. So it wasn't like balance, it wasn't, you know, lineups, or it wasn't like anything like that. The perfect matchmaker is a matchmaker which gets you into a match as quick as possible. So every other factor, a balance, is to make your experience better, but at the same time, the golden rule is for you not to sit in that wait screen for as long as possible. Because even if you have a look at like analytics when it comes to advertisements, or even just websites, right? Just websites. What I want you to do is I want you to have a look at a really interesting stat. I can't remember it specifically on the top of my head, but there's a few papers done about it. The amount of time it takes you to load a website is like huge when it comes to people's eyes. So if it takes slightly longer to load a website, there's a much higher percentage of people who will just click off of it and go to somewhere else. So the speed in which your website loads is huge for what like, you know, goes on in the system, right? And if it's the longer it gets, the worse it gets, right? So what'll end up happening in a system with longer queue times is people will actually gravitate around specific BRs where the most players are anyway. So it doesn't solve the issue. If anything, it just makes it worse, which, you know, is not really going to work very well. So it's something to consider. Unfortunately, humans are impatient beasts. It would be nice if we had a bit more patience, but we don't. So it's simple as, really. It's kind of sad. Hopefully one day. Yeah, they'll just leave. Like, that's the thing. Hey, Carpia, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing good. I want to ask what's the best ground lineup for Britain right now? Top tier isn't for you. 3-7, 4-7, 7-7. All those are fantastic. They all work very well. Can't be mad at any of them. Also, I'm writing this right before Game 7 of Oilers versus Canucks. I'm sorry, but I really hope Edmonton wins this one. They just have a better chance of winning the cup. As always, thanks for your comments and have a good week. Well, they did win. That game was just so dumb to watch, man. Like, it was so boring. No, sorry, boring isn't the right word. It was frustrating because the good old Canuckies just did not turn up in the first two periods. So they just didn't do anything. You know, I think that there's a bunch of power plays. They just didn't even get a shot on the goal. And then, as usual, they ramped up by the end, but it was too late. And yeah, I wish that when it came to them, because this happened a few times during the series, there was one game where they came out like hell's bells, and that was actually really cool, and it was fun to watch. But there were many of them where they were such slow starters, just trying to get stuff going. And I just wish that they didn't do that. I wish that they were a little bit just more aggressive to start with, and just to get stuff done a lot quicker. Maybe next year, who knows? But they did well to get to the point where they got to, right? I've watched some of the Edmonton games. I think it's 1-1 between them and Dallas. Went into overtime yesterday, so very unfortunate. Maybe next time. Who knows? Maybe the next game they'll be fine. But we'll see what goes on. Any country you like playing the most? For naval, it's America. For ground, it's France. For air, it's Italy. So that's like my my general setup. There we go. We'll just play some of this while doing the tech talk. Right, so next one. We have Kakaprut. About the WIP tied to the research of another nation. The work in progress, I'm guessing. What is your view about the expression daily bonus in the bar at the bottom of the screen? It reminds me of the old time when you got a booster if you played 3 nations present at that time, and I don't like it. Daily bonus? I mean, they talked about how they were going to do it, right? They talked about how they were going to set it up in the past. So when they first initially talked about how they were going to implement the scheme, so how they were going to implement the scheme of the playing other nations. The way that they put it was you would have like 3 games at the start of your session on that day, which would give you additional research points. So if you'd researched a specific vehicle in a different tech tree and you were playing another one, it would give you like a 15% bonus for the first 3 games of that other nation. That was their idea. I don't like that idea. I think there are much better ways of doing stuff like this. I talked about some of them in the Hopes video that I released today on Sunday, and I don't particularly like the idea. I think there are better ways of doing it. Hey, Rat Dog, nice to see you. Thank you, man. That's very kind of you. So, for example, if you have similar vehicles in different tech trees, you could reduce the RP or increase bonuses when it comes to actually researching them. The other thing you could also do is just give nation-specific bonuses each week, independently from each other. So 1 week it'll be Britain, 1 week Japan, 1 week China, and you just give like a 10% or 5% research overall for that nation. So therefore it just gives people a little bit of a boost of going into it. You could have nation-specific boosters, which are slightly higher than the average. So instead of having like a 15% RP booster for 20 battles, Maybe it could be a 20% for Italy itself. We have backups which are specifically for certain nations and even certain vehicles in those nations. There's no reason why we couldn't do that, but for everything else. So that, to me, would be something to focus on instead of this. Hey, if you play 3 battles at the start of the day, you get 15% bonus in each of the ones. I don't find that interesting. I don't find that really, that intuitive or anything. And also, does it stack? Does it stack if you have a bunch of vehicles done? So yeah, I think it was nice getting the research bonuses, but I just think there are better ways of doing it. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So then we have Bewildered. What would be some ways you could improve heli PvE? Or just adding more events in it. Service tech, service. I see your arguments against loaders fatigue. It might make sense for simulator, but not for other game modes. The basic reason why I came up with it is because I've heard many people complain about the fact that human loaders are worse in War Thunder because they aren't modeled more realistically. So it would just make those people happy, or if not, rethink their opinion. Well, I mean, as we've talked about previously, you got to be super careful with this whole, trying to make things as realistic as possible, at the end of the day. Because of the fact there's a lot of stuff in the game which, if modeled realistically, wouldn't actually be that fun. And the issue with modeling loaders realistically is each loader is going to have a different loading time. Even though there are standards for these things, in terms of, what kind of standard you have to hit in order to, pass whatever gunnery training that you're doing, the fact is we're all human and we all have different abilities, right? I'm built like a shed. I can lift quite a lot, right? But also, I'm wide as all hell. So I'm going to have issues with mobility in a place like that, but I'm not going to have an issue with moving the shell. So it really just depends on how quick I'm able to swivel my body to be able to do stuff with that, right? Now, in general, I'm going to have a different loading level to the next human because we're going to be different sizes and different shapes, and that's fine. But then how do you come up with something that's realistic in terms of what each of us should be able to do, right? So it's just, you got to be super careful with dealing with the realistic guys because they have this picture of realism which isn't realistic. They just have whatever it says in the book. But also at the same time, it's something that you can't actually follow, especially in terms like that, because you would just have different standards for different sets. It might even be down to the fact that different nations have different loading times for different reasons, right? Whether it be safety or whether it be certain checks in the vehicle before loading the gun. So yeah, it's very hard to put a number on these things, and I feel like it's probably not worth it at the end of the day. It's much better just to standardize these things and also just make it so people understand how it works. But yeah, the realism stuff does my head in. Because a lot of the time it's used in a way to try and buff specific nations in order to make them stronger from the people. Then we have Jerry. A cool April Fool's event would be a modern aircraft event where you fly around stuff like the F-22 and Su-27s with their crazy weapons and flight models. We've had a modern ground vehicles event, so air would be nice. Also, my favorite comment that I've seen on one of your videos is why does Gaijin hate America video, and it said, I agreed with you up until you started shilling for Gaijin. Yeah, that's pretty standard. But I mean, they could do a modern aircraft one, but the interesting thing about the modern ground one was the fact that it was a time in War Thunder's history where we weren't in a position where they were ever even thought about adding that stuff, right? The that was during the time where they still had hard limits on like what vehicle, what era of vehicles they were gonna add. Like the whole, oh well, we're not gonna go past this year, right? So it was new, it was funky, it was crazy, and it was like, oh my god, where did this come from? Oh, you can actually do this? Oh, okay, well, let's have a think. Like, would people like to see this? You know, would it be there? Where nowadays, if they did like a modern aircraft event, it would just be kind of like a sneak peek into what they're gonna do in the future, because we know it's coming. Because why wouldn't it? Like it's obviously in the plans because you know they've got to the modern day with ground. They've at least in War Thunder Mobile starts to go more modern with naval, and with air we're seeing a general progression forward too. So it's just like, would it be that interesting, or would it just be kind of like a sneak peek about what the future's gonna look like? I feel like, at least for me, the two areas would be very different from each other. Like they would have very different feels compared to what they did before. And I might be wrong, maybe people would see them the same, or maybe they would go through them the same. But for me, I think I would find it kind of dull. The cool thing about the standard ground one was, as I said, everything was new, everything was different. There was a bunch of mechanics that just weren't in the game that were also shown off, which was really cool. And yeah, but I feel like if they just did it with air, it would be kind of dull. Maybe I'm wrong, Maybe it might be enjoyable. Naval? Yes, naval. Right. Then we have Doomed. All the discourse around map size and team size in both ground and air seem to be directed by individuals who have no idea what it's like stock grinding tanks or aircraft, especially at high BRs. You've worked it out. You've hit the nail on the head. And with widespread introduction of agile active radar homing missiles, this issue is only to get even worse. But no, let's make it 6v6 on a massive map, so people in stock jets can take off and fly for 5 minutes before getting whacked out of the sky by an AMRAAM, and having absolutely no ability to fight back at all, or to gain any kills whatsoever. Base bombing would get even worse, because people would be more incentivized to bomb bases, knowing that the team sizes are smaller, and they are far from likely to get to the bases without being intercepted, or the bases getting bombed by other teammates. So, well, that's kind of up in the air. That idea could go both ways, right? Because it's less competition, but yeah. Stock players would also rush to kill ground targets or bomb bases even more, to no fault of their own, because they would be rendered useless against a squad of 4 spaded aircraft. Or not even a squad of spaded aircraft, it could just be random players. That's the thing. The difference between a spaded aircraft and even like a half spaded aircraft at high tier is nuts, right? Good evening, Fabian. Nice to see you. Stock players would also... Oh no. It's just an awful idea, and I really hate it. Getting perpetrated and hyped up by so many large era BCCs. Well, I mean, it's a problem I've talked about a lot of the time. Like, you doing stuff like War Thunder, when it comes to content creation, one of the things that I've tried my best to do over the years is try and make it so I try and get as much as the standard experience as possible. So I grind out all the events, do the battle pass stuff, do all the different things. And it's in order to try and make sure that I don't fall into the trap of, well, we should just do this thing because it benefits the aced spaded vehicle. Because the game itself is actually super easy to play if all you do is play in like those types of vehicles. You'll just cream everybody. It's very easy to do, right? Hey Monet, nice to see you. But the problem is if you aren't in that state, which most people aren't, you're gonna have a really, really rough time. And that is what ends up happening with people. Less targets on the map, less going on. And also, you're just at the mercy of people who have high modification stuff. Like, how can you expect somebody who gets a vehicle fully spaded and just plays it fully spaded with a very good crew to ever understand what it's like to stock grind stuff at that BR of the game? everything is based around the idea of a spaded vehicle and what is its best situation to find itself in. That's the whole point. So it's just kind of how it is. How was the birthday? It was alright, money. Like, it went well. We went to IKEA as well, so that was quite fun. It was alright. My monitor was 1440p and like 160 hertz, and it was like $150. So I don't know where you're getting $1150 from for something like that, but that seems a bit rough. Probably look for sales or something like that. But no, it was good. I enjoyed it. Yeah, it's a problem we've had in War Thunder for the longest time. There's a big disconnect between how an average player plays and how CCs play. Because whether it's time or whether it's just like what you have unlocked, it's a very different world. So I've run into it a lot myself, like when like I've run into that crowd so much, which like I don't know if they just like only see like one of my videos every so often, but they always leave like the same comment about like how can I talk about events or whatever, because I haven't sat there and like grinded them out and stuff, and it's just like I literally sit here and do all these bloody things, you know? Like it's kind of nuts. Yeah. It's just how it is. Right, let's have a look at Maxwell. Hello again, Tech. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, life's good. We're just chilling. Like, feeling good overall. Like, I can't be mad at life. Basically, all we're doing is, you know, working out and sorting out the next kind of stage of a few things. Should be a good time. Like, pretty happy with stuff right now. Had to deal with a few different things yesterday, but got it done. You know, obviously the birthday party, some IKEA stuff. Had to fix some black mold, so that was always enjoyable. But yeah, life's good. I'd like to give a few thoughts on the new vehicles I've gone recently. Firstly, the 6.7 Russian tanks are way better than the 6.3 ones, but I'll play them to spade and get the ZSU-57 too. Yeah, they probably have better matchmaking as well, because of that whole 6.7-7.7 gap. Get like down to quite a lot. Second, the 5.3 British tanks are nice. Yeah, they have good penetration. Okay mobility as well. Not the best, but yeah, it's okay. I don't know if I just don't get along with the high-tier gameplay, but even though the TAM is cool, I don't see myself liking playing it at 8.7 with barely any lineup. Should I take it to 9.0 with the A1A1? Last thing, and sorry if it's too big of a comment, but I'm looking forward to the M51, sorry, because it's another Sherman. Just watch out for the crew skill stuff with that Sherman. Can be a bit of rough for that. The TAM you could technically up tier if you want to. I mean, obviously it's usually not best to run stuff at higher BR than you can, but yeah, it's still gonna be fine. Like it's still gonna work well. Just you're gonna have to use it more as a passive scout instead of an aggressive vehicle, and the TAM works the best as an aggressive vehicle wandering around the place. But no, it'll be fine. It would work. It'd work pretty well. I would probably do it if I was like half spaded once I got the APF SDS. And we have Insane Robert. Hello, Tech. Hello. My issue with most RRB maps nowadays is that many of them are too flat and have no canyons or gorges to offer any cover, especially from radar PD guided missiles, where the top tier meta dictates. And let's just find another guy to shoot at. Radar PD guided where the top 10 must it takes, and most of the maps have the bases and ground troops all crammed up in the middle, which makes map development streamlined and easy to implement, but boring and repetitive as well. Is it the chicken before the egg or the egg before the chicken? Right? There are hundreds of square kilometers / miles in top tier RB where nothing is there. All the targets are found in a few squares on the map, and everyone goes there straight away from takeoff. I know Gaijin wants to cater to casual players and encourage more people to play their game, but by doing so, they remove variety into the game and any interesting aspect of each map. Also, naval targets became so rare, you hardly meet any ships in RRB, and those perhaps around 3.0 to 6.0. Yeah, but as I said, is it the chicken before the egg or the egg before the chicken? Because we used to have those maps, right? Like, we used to have maps which were, like, super varied. We technically still do. Like, they're still in the Matchmaker. They're just not at the higher echelons of the game. Because people used the map rotation filter and voted them out of that area. So, the question has to be, right? Which way is it? Is it the fact that they looked at the trends of the players and also what players were asking for and followed that? Or is it because they decided to completely shift everything up to try and cater to a new player base that they might get? So if we have a look at Gaijin and the decisions they've made in the past when it comes to trying to cater to a new player base or whatever that is, some of the stuff that they've said in the past is that they don't actually like doing that. Because they're very worried about alienating the previous player base. And that's why BR changes or decompression doesn't happen as quickly as some people might want. It's straight up the same reasons. Because of the fact that you might end up killing parts of the game. Which is why gradual changes is what comes forward. So the idea that we used to have that, and then they changed it because of trying to cater to a new preconceived audience, I don't know if that's true. I think it might be because of the vehicle strengths and the changes to them, because a lot of the maps that are available at the mid-tiers and low-tiers were available previously as well. It's just the top tier, right, like that everybody talks about, the high tier or the top tier, those maps have changed because top tier has changed. And the old maps wouldn't work on those maps. You could not have old Berlin at top tier. You could not have old Hokkaido. You could not have, any of the naval maps at top tier. Because there are planes which would just end the game within about 3 minutes. It used to even happen on certain maps like Berlin. On Berlin, if you had the Pulkestorer, or if you had the Horten, you could just go along the tank lines. There was 3 of them. Bang, bang, bang. Bish, bash, bosh. Done. Well done. You win the game in 5 minutes. So it has to be, as I said, which is first, the chicken or the egg? Why would they fundamentally change stuff to cater to a new set of people that they don't even know exists? Or maybe the game just changed, and the vehicles changed, so they had to adapt the maps to it. They have also, the last few maps that they've added maps which have a ton of cover in them. Whether it's like that canyon map, where it has like a bunch of the rock formations in the center, whether it's the volcano map, which has like, well, a bunch of volcanoes around it. So they are adding stuff like that. You know, they are adding different elevations and different things like that. Whether people use them or not is obviously a different thing. So we'll have to see what goes on. Naval targets one kind of sucks. I like the naval targets. I'm not really happy that they removed them. Kind of sucks. Last few maps have cover on the outside with 20+ kilometers in the center of flat. Yeah, pretty much. Which means that you can set up on the sides and then go into the center. As I said, chicken or the egg. Nice to see you, senpai. Hopefully you're doing alright today. No, it isn't, because here, I can... What's that map which has all the rock formations in the center? Right? What's the, I can't remember what it's called, but that's one of the most recent maps. And that one has a metric ton of cover in the center. It's just whether people actually use it or not. Like, it has the valley, it has, like, all the rock formations, and then the volcano one does too, like... And it is down to the player to choose where they engage. The map is there to be used. Use it. Right, and the next one is OCS. Hi Tech, what's your day job? I don't usually talk about that stuff online, because unfortunately it's led to some unfortunate times where people have contacted my boss and tried to screw with my real life stuff, so yeah, unfortunate. It would be nice maybe one day, like when I'm retired in like 30 years, maybe we'll like go through it and kind of set up and kind of show how it's all done, but yeah, it's not something I openly talk about, just because there are some people who are dicks, and it sucks. Getting annoyed over video games. Right, let's see. So then we have Linen. Just give us a new game mode for air combat, 2v2 and 4v4. Let the people choose for themselves. You have 2v2 and 4v4. It's called the tournaments. Go play them. The solution for this is pretty simple with the idea of smaller game modes or whatever. It isn't really... you can't just let everybody choose which size they want stuff, by the way. So, for example... if you split everything into its own little game mode, so every little area, right? Every little area was split into different like numbers versus different numbers. You have just taken one game mode and you've made like what? Let's say 2v2, 4v4, 6v6, 8v8, 10v10, 10v10, 12v12, 14. So you've just created 9 separate game modes, or 8 separate game modes from one game mode. So imagine if they're all split equally, right? So now each game mode has an 1/8 of the player base that I did before at each of the BRs. Now that's not going to happen, but just think that, right? Like, do you think there's enough? Do you think there's enough players to be able to fill that and be okay? Or what you could do is you could make it just like Night Battles and Ground, where you just have a switch. So you have it off by default, but if people want smaller battles, you can click it on. And then what it'll do is it'll preferentially matchmake you into battles with smaller amounts of people. And then if there aren't enough people in that queue, it switches over to the other one. There you go. Like, you just do it like that, you know? Hey Mickey, nice to see you. Do you think they should increase the block list capacity as the number of players increase? No. Have you filled your block list? I don't even know how many people you can put in your block list. I have like 5. It's like, I don't know. I don't think that's a huge worry for me. Like in general. I don't use stuff like that enough to really think of, you know, needing to increase it. It's max 100? Do you think you need that many? Like, honestly? Do you think you need, like, more than 100? Hey, Zara, nice to see you. Sunday's going well, man. We're just chilling. Doing the good old tech talk. But yeah, so what happens when you add in way too many game modes to something? Let's say you have, like, 4 game modes. So not 8 like this. But let's say you have 4. And they all offer, like, a similar thing. What you'll have is you'll have a player base split. So, like, 60% of it will go to, like, one game mode, and then 20% will go to another one, and then let's say 20% or 2 10%, right? So 2 10%, a 20%, and a 60. So everybody who plays the game to start with will, you know, find their game modes that they enjoy. Okay, and they'll just play them, and they'll have a good time. Then new players will come in. And new players will want to play the most popular game modes. Because they want to see what people are enjoying the most. And also, most of the content will be made around those most popular game modes. Right? So, what ends up happening is you have a feedback loop where everybody who plays the more popular game mode gets more coverage and therefore gets more people interested in it. Which is fine. But it also means, right? But it also means that those other game modes never really gain any new players. Right? So they'll just kind of sit there and not really do a lot. And the queue times will increase because more and more people will drop out and they'll get no new people inside of the game mode. And instead, you'll just eventually wither away. And the percentage of people who play the smaller game modes will decrease comparatively to the rest. And any new player who comes in who tries to try those things ends up sitting there for ages in queues and won't find anything. So then they'll just go play the popular game mode. So what you've done is you've created 4 separate game modes. But over time, people will only play one. Because the vast amount of people will just funnel into that one to get quicker matches and to play. That's what happens with a lot of games. That's why like a ton of FPSs specifically have massively limited the amount of game modes that they have. Because they realized through, what people play, that even though there's like a small percentage of people who like stuff like, capture the flag or, stuff like that, it's not enough to actually develop that side of things. So it's straight up just a supply demand thing. It's crazy. But from a game perspective. So yeah. That's basically why. You don't want to string out your player base too much because then nobody gets into games and then everybody leaves. So that's also quite dangerous. Because eventually people go play other stuff, Hey, LC, nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing good. Yeah, it'd be nice if we got some resets on maps and stuff. I'd be fine with that. It does get a bit monotonous, I agree. So we have Away With You, Valbega. And everyone reading. Oh my god. This is a very long one. We'll do how about we do one we'll do one tech talk, goddamn. Alright. We'll start off with some sad news since we're legally required to disclose the fact that we cannot implement a kill switch in the devices of people worldwide that will recreate the realistic fate of anyone unlucky enough to be in a destroyed vehicle. That would be quite funny. I think we should do that. Do you remember For Honor? Do you remember For Honor where it was peer-to-peer matchmaking? Then when somebody started losing, they just pulled the cord. Oh, that was funny. We've also been holding that creating a digital IED is an act of terrorism and putting the lives of people in danger is a very immoral act. We're also discouraged discouraged/threatened by Gaijin for creating a script that would delete a player's entire account if they died in game, since Gaijin believes it would be bad for sales. I know these news come as a shock to the entire realism community, and although this is a sad reality we live in, we'll still strive to get these features added in the future by spamming this suggestion with every chance we get. Yeah, it'll eventually get through, right? Like, going crazy. I don't think it takes 10,000 hours to unlock an F-16, if I'm honest with you, Marin. I think you could do it a lot quicker. With all that said, it's time for some actual changes that will come with the realism patch. In the year 2077. The new default game mode will be an innovative and extremely sought-after mode called historically realistic. I will bring some minor changes to your day-to-day experience in War Thunder. Number 1 is the ranking system. In this game mode, we'll remove the current ranking system, old, and replace it with the system we all yearned for. World War II to Cold War to modern age. This is going to solve most, if not all, of the matchmaking problems. And we can finally see some historically accurate battles instead of fighting balanced battles made for people that wish to enjoy their game. Very true. Screw those people. This will obviously require the incentivized good tactics and a smart playstyle from the individual player with good communication and positioning from the team. Now, there will be a small minority of people that disagree with the changes above, but it's a small price to pay for the sake of realism and historical accuracy. Agreed. You know, we have to fight the good fight and make everything as realistic as possible. It's simple as. It can be done, you know. But we'll have a look at number 2 next time. I think it's important to do that. Well, generic background character has an interesting confession. Crazy. I was crazy once. They locked me in a room, a rubber room with rats, and rats make me crazy. Well, there you go. What was interesting about rats is I was watching the NHL, and I think it was the Florida Panthers. If they win a game, or if, you know, something's happening, people throw fake rats on the ice. Seems kind of weird. They just toss a big old rat. Why? Who knows? They just do it though. For some reason, they're a fan. So, seems like different NHL teams have different traditions in what they throw on the ice. No idea why. Seems a bit odd to me. So we have Islam Zayod. Hey Tech. I'm going crazy because of my OCD. Why did you change the patron's last name to Derek R? I'm used to it being Lafouche. And every time I want to say Lafouche, you say Derek R. Because the amount of patrons and also members change month on month. And the way to move them around changes too. So it's basically the way that I read them. Like I read the patrons first, and then I read the members second. So it's straight up just when they appear in the lineup. There isn't any like favoritism or anything like that. It's straight up just making it like it's just reading them out in order. The thing about it as well is, since, you know, it's a monthly thing, I have to re-record it every month, and that means that some things might change month to month. So it's just how it goes. I don't know if there's like a proper way of doing it or a different way of setting it up, but that's pretty much why. I'm very grateful to everybody who does obviously support monetarily the work that's here. It means that I can end up, you know, doing this and having a good time with it, and at the same time improve it as we go. We've done a ton of big updates this year, and it's been very beneficial and made it so much easier for me to be able to do stuff. So I'm very happy with the way that stuff is right now, and all I can say is thank you at the end of the day. Here we go. So we have House of Schmidt. Team size in RRB was increased from 12 to 16 on the 9th of March 2023. The server update dev blog did not explain why. Stoner also never explained why on the old forum post. I can't seem to find this quote you're referring to. Do you know why they made this change back then? Yes, I do. Because they even talked about it 10 years ago. I even like made a War Thunder nostalgia video about why they prefer 16v16 compared to 12v12 or 14 versus 14. They talked about it 10 years ago. It's crazy, right? But yeah, as I said, you can ask a community manager why they made the change. It's good to do. Is squad stacking a massive issue in RRB? Yes, it's a huge issue. It's a absolutely metrically large issue that people don't know about. So yes. I know Upper Air Arcade is abused by squads, which is why I don't play Air Arcade above 8.7-ish. But yeah, the simple fact is, Air Realistic does not take into account squads versus squads. So, if you want, like, you know when you, every so often, you see those accounts, which are like, how the hell does this guy have like a 90% win rate? Or how the hell does this guy have like a 95% win rate? Or an 89% win rate? It's because every battle they play in, they play with squads, they play with 2 other or 3 other people in stuff like Air Realistic. That's why. Because you constantly get put up with people who cannot communicate, and you can communicate. It's a massive advantage. It's an insanely large advantage. So yes, it is a huge issue, and downplaying it is insane. To me, the stock grind in air is far less punishing than in ground. That doesn't mean that it's good. That just means that it's better. They can both be poor. The addition of more PV objectives and giving ways to avoid detection by the enemy could improve the grind. Maybe even removing enemy markers could help. Go play Simulator at that point. If that's what you want, just go play Simulator. Simulator is also not really a 16v16 experience, right? But no, removing markers is a very, very poor idea. You are making a change, and in order to make that change work, you are trying to do a bunch of band-aid fixes, and you are going to break a bunch of stuff like going ahead. Because you want to force through this first change. If you want to have an example of this, right? It's drones in War Thunder. Where you want to add a system because you think it's cool and it's also innovative and it's something that is realistic. So you add in attack drones. Oh, it also means that more people get access to CAS, so therefore they don't have to grind out the air trees. Isn't that cool? Yeah, because now people get access to more mechanics, and you know they don't have to worry about the grind as much. What happened? Okay, so they had to rebalance them about 5 separate times, and they still haven't really properly done it yet, and they've had to limit their use so much because they were so oppressive, and they had to do a bunch of band-aid fixes over and over and over again. While for 6 months, people just got caned by random things they couldn't see. That's what happens when you start doing a ton of band-aid fixes to things, right? So you've got to be very careful with that. We have many examples of this in War Thunder, where a mechanic or an idea, you can tell that somebody at Gaijin wanted to implement, so they implemented it and didn't see the difficulties that it would run into. You don't know what the perfect team size is? The current maps in upper tier RRB vary widely. Ideally, team size should depend on map and BR. I'd like to see maps that encourage players to spread out in RRB. You won't change the way that people play the game. I wish they'd just bring back RRB EC. The game wasn't ready for it in 2017, but I think it would work really well today. You'd be wrong. Once again, just go play Sim, man. Like, all of these things are in Simulator. Just go play Sim. You'll have fun. You know, you'll have a great time. You want to go play EC? Simulator. You want smaller battles? Simulator. You don't want markers? Simulator. It's like... Is it just the first person bit? Is that like the issue? Is that it? Sim controls can be annoying, I do agree. But you can work it out. You know, there's plenty of resources out there that can help with them. But at the same time, you shouldn't make the two... like, game modes the same. As I said, the fix to this is super simple. Just put in a switch. Just do what they did with night battles. Just put in a switch. Just have a switch that you click on if you want smaller battles, and you keep off if you want the standard battles. Easy peasy. Like you don't need to do all these crazy things. You don't need to fundamentally change all this stuff that's going around. It's not needed. Just do the simple thing. Give people the option. It doesn't affect standard matchmaking. It means that people can play how they want. And then also, once again, make squads fight squads. Just like every other game mode. Including Naval. Which has that, you know, matchmaking in it. But for some reason, like... Air just doesn't. So... You can do it. So then we have... good old Crash Bang. Once again, I don't care who they send, I'm not paying my taxes. Well, it's usually a better thing to pay these things. Yeah, it's you are baiting the federal governments to come after you. That's usually not a great plan. Like, it turns out they usually have quite a lot of resources, and if you sting stuff like that, it's generally not gonna go very well. Like, there's some people you don't annoy in the world, and that's definitely one of them. Then we have Maxwell. Do you want me to do your misses' timestamps? No, it's all good. All fine and dandy. I don't even know what for. Can we talk about how the Arkham games had one, if not the worst, series conclusions? After the 4 bangers that are the Arkham games, we get SS, a $70 live service game. Oh, Suicide Squad. With only grind to do. Worse graphics than a 9-year-old game, Arkham Knight, and a terrible story that makes Peppa Pig look like Shakespeare. That game came out, and I heard, like, nothing about it. It came out, and there were some memes about how stupid the story was, and then, like, that was it. So, that kind of tells me how it was, which obviously wasn't very good. So yeah, I don't know much about it. I want to play the Arkham games. I still haven't played them. I have them, I think. Like I've bought them so many times for the people, but I've just never played them. Maybe that could be a set of games for next year. That could be pretty fun. All right, let's go. Sorted. My missus has been playing this like witch game recently on the Switch, where you're a witch and you have to go around a bunch of different portals and find different stuff. It's actually pretty fun. I've no idea what it's called, but it's got a really cool art style. The only thing is when you end up killing things, so a lot of it is like setting a trap and to kill something, or putting something to sleep to beat it over the head with an axe. But there is like it is loud. So like everything else, the music's just like dun 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 dun, and you're just wandering around this like weird, you know, mythical forest. And then when something dies in a trap, you go and it just goes bang, and it just like blows your head off, and it's just so weird. But yeah, it's a fun game. So then we have Fun with Magnus. I love the idea of max realism in sim modes. Grand RB is pretty damn good how it is. Yeah, there's some issues they could work on. A tad more realism could be added. But I'd rather them test the realism stuff in sim first. Hell, even add Lancer and Switchblade, drones, or other loitering munitions and mines in sim. I don't think so. No, I don't think so. Addition, I'd like to see higher spawn costs for aircraft. Even though in low tier, I love getting into cast planes ASAP, I'd gladly trade that away to not get slapped with GBU 3 minutes into a match at top tier. I'd like to see other additions to the theatre air defense, like Patriots and S300 and 400s at top tier as well. Yeah, Witchy Life. Yeah, that one. Nice to see you, Aldo Caruli. Yeah, I think it's called Witchy Life. It's been pretty fun to watch. I don't know where I put my phone, actually. But yeah, so I mean, if you want to annihilate Sim, like, go ahead. Like, I don't really mind. You know, Sim is one of those places where if you wanna really just take it behind the barn and annihilate it, then you can do. But I would say there are quite a lot of players who play Sim, and using them as guinea pigs is probably not a great idea. So yeah, I don't like this idea of just like throwing stuff at Simulator all the time just to see how it works, because it's not going to end well, because eventually you'll just start breaking stuff and then you just nuke that player base. So you got to be super careful with these things. But yeah, it's I think it's just one of those which kind of sucks. Patriots and S300 and 400s, I'm not interested in either. I know a lot of people want them in and all that, but the engagement distances of these things are just kind of nuts. And also, not every nation in the game uses S300, 400s, or Patriots. So once again, we gotta get out of this mentality of an arms race mentality. We gotta get as far away as possible from it. It's one of the worst ways of looking at the game. Where if somebody has something which is overpowered, we need to match it with something else that's overpowered. And then that thing becomes a new thing. And then we need something for that's overpowered too, to deal with that. Because what ends up happening is after like your 4th or 5th layer of this thing, the 1st and 2nd layer are worthless. You cannot use them. Nothing, like, they just don't work. Right? So that, and at this point, we actually have, at certain areas of the game, have those like 1st or 2nd level vehicles, which are a waste of time. And people still have to grind through them. They still have to have a bit of fun with them. So yeah, I really, yeah, like, I mean, technically active radar homing missiles is a 5th layer. 1st layer, you have obviously standard IR guided missiles. 2nd layer, semi-active radar homing. 3rd layer was the advanced radars, which obviously helped the semi-actives. 4th layer was the IR guided missiles with IR CCMs, and now you have active radar homing missiles. So anybody who's stuck on the 1st set of missiles while having to face all the rest, you're just worthless. What do? Nothing, actually. You don't get to do anything. You get to sit there and wonder, have you made a good decision in your life to try and do that stuff? And unfortunately, the answer a lot of the time is no. So yeah, the adding stuff on top of stuff, yes, may solve that specific issue, but you also affect all of the other stuff that's around, and that all of that stuff gets crucified. It's not great. It's not nice to see. You know? It's not enjoyable. I wish it was different. Do you remember the prime days of the F-14? It was awful if you weren't using it. Yeah. Yeah, you couldn't do anything against those things. Like, I spaded it when it was that time, because they actually created a loading screen for it. So you had to play 100 battles to get the loading screen, and I ended up doing it. And there was nothing that could deal with you at high altitude. And basically you had the whole air dominance to yourself, and then you worked downwards, and it worked really well. It was absolutely busted. So it was insane. It was insane to play. Alright, so then we have Charlie Harris. So I've always wondered this: why do War Thunder players think that German tank players are stupid? Since Germany was my first tech tree, I spaded, and lately... Sorry, I'm just setting up a shot. And lately I've been branching out to other countries, mainly Japan and America. I did try the Italians, but yeah, their tanks probably nothing more than target practice. And yes, if you couldn't already tell, I'm a German main, although I do find it funny when people come across me in my Tiger H1. My Tiger H1, and they find out I'm not your average Tiger player. Oh yeah, before I forget, don't even make those heroin jokes. And why would you assume or even make the joke that I've never tried heroin? Why would you even make that sort of statement? That was a bit of a dick move. So little advice, maybe don't make those sorts of jokes in the future. I will say what I want to say, thank you. You are allowed to say what you're allowed to say. I'm allowed to say what I'm allowed to say. This is how the world has to work. If we start policing each other's thoughts and policing each other's feelings, that's not going to happen. Because it means that we end up just being in a scenario where whoever has the power in the situation controls what the other person says. So I'd prefer living in a place where people are comfortable saying what they want and having a bit of fun about things, especially when it comes to jokes. If we live in a time where we start policing each other's speech in that way, people will just shut down conversations and go away from other things, right? Now, the simple fact is that people say stuff like, German mains are trash, or, Americans are stupid and things like that. It's just easy narratives, right? Like it's just the same idea when you get like narratives about, well, stereotypes about countries. People just make them because it's easy to do. It's a way of brushing off an issue without really thinking about it. Why are certain German tanks undertiered? Because the people playing them are terrible. Why are certain German tanks overtiered? Because somehow the people playing them are still terrible? Yeah, so it's an easy way of brushing off things without having to use your brain. And it happens in all parts of life. It's just how it goes. It's as simple as that. It's not something that really is that technical. It's just like one-off comments people make to try and sound hilarious. Unfortunately, it generally makes them just sound stupid, so it's just kind of how it goes. The simple thing is it's something to not really pay mind to. It's not going to change the way that you see things. It's not going to change the way that they see things. It's not going to change anything. So I wouldn't worry about comments like that. It's the major thing is to not really get too worried about what other people say and just focus on how you feel about a situation and how you want to go ahead with it. Simple as. Hey, Tugnuts, nice to see you, man. Nice to see you too, Teddy. Hopefully you're doing good. We're doing the tech talk first, and then we're going to be doing probably the F4 something or other, but I don't really know which one I want to play. So yeah, that's the idea. We're going to be playing Battle Block with Freeman later, which should be quite fun. So looking forward to that. Should be quite nice. Then we have Kilda. Do I believe in God? I got no idea, man. Like it's the way that I see stuff like that is, will it affect my life? Or how will it affect my life if I believe it to be true or not to be true? And the answer is it doesn't affect it at all. So what I do on a daily basis isn't affected by that question. And since for me, I have a lot more stuff right now to focus on in what would be classed as at least the realistic my world, I can worry about those types of questions later on once all of the stuff for me is sorted out. So making sure that we have enough money for the future of the family, making sure that the house and everything like that's sorted, making sure that, everything is just working all right and everything is good. Those types of things are much more important to me than any conversation like that. Because the way that I see it is stuff like that can be core to a person's character. What they believe in, whether it comes to governance or whether it comes to religion, politics, whatever it is. And that's fine. It can be. For me, it isn't. The core of my character is the people around me and making sure that they're all right and making sure that everything works well around. And if we're able to do that, then everything's great. So that's what I focus on. And once all of that is sorted, whenever it is in life, whatever is kind of, going on, then that's when we start having the conversations about those questions. I don't like the idea of trying to have conversations about stuff when other parts of the life aren't balanced. So, for example, it's like, when you get a lot of those like self-help gurus who like talk about, oh, well, you just have to breathe more. You have to visualize what you're trying to do. Oh, well, you got to do yoga every morning. Or, oh, well, you need to get up at like 3 a.m. and do all these things, right? Like, there's stuff like that, which is just obnoxious and annoying. And, luckily nowadays, that stuff has kind of gone with the wind. Or, you need to be super macho, or you need to like treat people like shit because, humans are jealous or whatever it is. But the major thing for me, right, is instead of like worrying about any of that stuff, just make sure that your core self is sorted. Because if your foundations on yourself and what you do aren't sorted, you're screwed. Nothing's going to happen. You're going to have a terrible time. So questions like, does God exist? What's Mother Nature about? How does the Earth function? Or like, how does the universe function? Where are we going to be in so long? What is my impact going to be on the world? None of those things ever cross my mind because they're a waste of my time. That's pretty much it. Alright, so then we have Berkilimaz. Hardcore realism to full extent. Didn't vote heal mechanism, voted for stun. Realism marketing asset of this game. I very much fall into the camp of, if you are interested in realism, it may be worth joining the army. If that is something that you want to go for, it might be worth doing that. Because one of the things that you'll learn if you actually join these things it isn't about like trying to basically say you should go do this because it's real. Instead, the way to put it is, you need to go do these things to understand that the things that you are trying to get into the game that you think are realistic are not realistic. And that is the key thing right there. Because what you'll find after like talking to a ton of people who have been through these things, nobody's like situation is the same afterwards. Nobody has the same feelings. Nobody feels the same stuff during the time it's happening. So the idea that there is a realistic way of dealing with these things, or a realistic like human emotion that you should see from it, and therefore the feedback of the game should be based off of that, is something that just can't work. It's as simple as that. So that's why I think it's important to experience these things. Just so it can be understood what it's actually like. Instead of living in what is believed to be a realistic world and, doing realistic things, instead of basing it on news reports or videos that you've watched or, books that you've read, it is time to go experience these things. To go and see what they're actually like. So then you could see if you actually like them or not. James Bond isn't real. Even the most realistic movie or TV show, when it comes to military stuff, is not real. It does not show reality. Even war footage does not show reality, because so much of it is cut out. Right? And after speaking to many veterans and to many ex-military people of all walks of life, they all have different stories, they all have different experiences, they all have a different way that they see it, whether it's positive, negative, neutral, or whatever. So yeah, it's how it is. Hey SK, nice to see you. You haven't experienced the realistic army experience until you have qualified expert with a mop and a broom. It's toilet cleaning time. Alright, so that's the last comment on the last tech talk. Do any of you guys have any questions or anything before we wrap this up and get back to some honest grinding? We need to get the F4J or the F4S done today. This clean mob's been quite nice. We've done some good damage the last few ones. British 3.0 is kind of cracked. The gun carrier's armor is really strong if you angle. The 6-pounder is great on the Valentine, the Crusader. And the Crusader AA is pretty much a low tier 2S38. I like the Crusader, I think it's fun. Where put banana? Oh dear. You need to make banana pancakes. Talking about bananas. I don't know if you've ever made them before. Take like 3 bananas, mush them up, then 1 egg, whisk it together, make a batter, fry it. There you go. You have now made a banana pancake. They're actually really nice. Highly recommend, and also a lot healthier than other stuff, so give it a go. You'll have a good time. Like, simple as. Are the tornadoes going down in RRB? No, I don't think so. Going down in ground. May you ask again about the 104s? You mean, well, you said to put them up, right? I only think the 104s that need to be put up are the A and the C. I don't think any of the other ones need to really be moved around that much. When I think about a lot of the 104s, they're in like weird positions in the game. The A and the C though are in the most aggressively good position. So yeah, it's just how it is. I think that as for now, Cold War and post-Cold War bombers have no place in the game. Do you have any idea on how they could possibly balance them? Limit their armaments is basically the way to do it. Just like they've done everything else. If you're worried about balance in the total game, the other way is to limit them in terms of which things they're in, like which game modes they're allowed in. But yeah, honestly it's just limiting secondary loadouts. Well, the way you balance the B-52 is through its loadouts. Like, that's it, you know. Just like how they balanced a bunch of other stuff. You just don't give them their full loadouts. Seems pretty simple to me. And if people complain, you give everybody a B-52. And then you give them loadouts. Seems to work. Alright, that's the end of the tech talk. So we'll wrap it up now. We're going to continue streaming and having a bit of fun. But for the tech talk itself, it will be finitoed. Look after yourself. See you next week. Bye-bye.